Hey, it's Paul here, Personal Development Unplugged. Looking to make things, deconstruct the complicated blooming things and make things simple. In simplicity, there's genius. And this is what we're going to do today. I'm going to talk about how you can raise the bar, your own personal bar, higher than you think, and then smash it. And that's why it's important. It's so important that you realize you can do, say, virtually anything that you can imagine. It's so important that you have a mindset that will allow you to exceed your imagination. Because when you do that, it's done.
Warning.
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 Warning. You are entering into the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. Too late. Personal Development Unplugged.
Hey, my friend, we're back, and I'm going to talk to you about how there are people of inspiration all around you. You can do anything you choose as long as you can imagine it. You can imagine anything, you can do it. Now, within reason, obviously, I'm not one of these people who go, if you could, everything, you can do anything that you put your mind to. Well, I believe you can as long as it's reasonable, achievable, but reasonable and achievable by whom? And obviously, that's by you. But this is important. And the reason why it's important is sometimes we just don't know how. We just don't know how to do the things that we want to do better. And that's how NLP became NLP, basically. Two guys, Richard Bandler, John Grinder, got together. And they'd been sent in some ways to visit various therapists who were doing such an outstanding job. The thing is, when they were in that flow, that zone of doing an outstanding job, doing therapy, one was a family therapist, Virginia Satir. Another one was a guy called Milton Erickson, who's doing just hypnotherapy. I say just, he was doing amazing stuff. And they were sent out there to learn what they did, how they did what they did. Because if you talk to anybody, I tell you what, if I was to talk to you and I said, think of something that you're really good at. And you go, yeah, go and think about it now. Think about it now. What are you really good at? Just think of one thing that you know you're really good at. Don't be bashful. Just think, what am I really good at? And then if I was to ask you, how do you do it? I think the answer would be, I don't know. I just do it. It comes naturally now. Didn't when you first started. It was very clunky. But now it's that the unconscious incompetent. No, it's not at all. It's that unconscious competence. It just flows. You just do it. And that's what happened to these people. And that's why it's so important, I think, because if you can bring to mind what you would really like to do, and you look at it and go, is this achievable by me? If I got the right training, if I practiced enough, could I do that? Is it reasonable to assume that I can, increase my performance, my way I'm in a relationship, or my career, or my way I play my guitar, draw, compose, anything, any skill? Could I get better at it? And the answer is obviously yes again, isn't it? So what happened was, these two guys, they went out to see Virginia Satir and noticed she used to get very, very specific about things. I thought, that's awesome. And her questioning, actually, it was then when they translated it back into a strategy, they called the meta model. Basically, it just got more and more specific. So instead of this general issue, we get down to the root cause. The one specific thing that one changed allows you to just let go of that issue. She was a family therapist. Then they went to see this guy called Milton Erickson, thinking, well, maybe he does the same thing. But he did the complete opposite. He would go very general and just do like metaphor after metaphor. And people would go away thinking, I'm not sure what happened there, because all I got told was loads of stories. Or I was asked to go and do this particular thing, his great thing was to walk up this thing called Squaw Peak up in Phoenix, Arizona. And I've seen pictures of it, and it's not just a little peak, it's quite a big peak. And by the time they've come down, everything changed. Now, what they did was, you could say, well, okay, I've learned what to do, but they got it transferable. Because the whole point of modeling is not just modeling what people do, it's being able to teach people to do the same thing. So you may not, become a world-class athlete, but if you do the type of things a world-class athlete does, think, the pictures they make in their mind, the schedules they do, the effort they put in, their own personal strategy, you may not become that world-class athlete, but you'll become probably the best athlete you could be with your physiology and things like that. So, what do you do? What do you do? Well, I'm thinking now, you've got to think about what you really want in life and what would you like to excel at. And we need to then find some strategies. You see, I remember one time I was at my NLP trainers training away for a month in Santa Cruz, California. Now, there was a lot of trainers there who wanted to model the main trainer there, Robert Dilts. Now, I was modeling of a kind, I guess, because I was listening to the words and watching what he does and see, what I could get from his physiology with the words and things like that. But what they were doing, they would go to the back of the hall and actually follow his physiology. So as if they were him, actually associating into this person who was up on the stage. And they were getting like neural pathways were starting to form on this physiology because they had loads of information and trainings, but they were able to put it together. And that was a way they could model him to become more excellent in what they did. Now, you see, can be quite difficult if you let it be difficult. You see, some people think you can model anything, and you can model anything, but you have to do it in small chunks because even a small chunk can be really quite complicated. I know when I first started modeling, it was in my master practitioner of NLP, and we had to model somebody, model it in a way that we could then replicate it, so do what they did, but it had to be something that we weren't doing at the same time, and then come back and tell everybody what we did so they could do it too. So you could train it, and if you can teach it, you've done the model. Well, I went for what I thought was the most easiest thing you could think of. It was going up and walking up to a horse. And I've told this story before, but I'll tell it very briefly. I thought that'd be easy peasy because basically you just walk up to a horse and pat it on its head. That's what Cluffy thought. Well, Cluffy thought that, and it was completely wrong. Because the strategies of this one, I picked this one particular person who had a horse. I said, I just want to know what you do. Yeah. How'd you walk up? Well, I don't know. I just do it. No. And then here comes the strategy. We would elicit the strategy, asking a question, what you do first, what pictures do you make in your mind, what your beliefs you have. And I found out there's a whole string of things that they did unconsciously. And we had to bring it out to their conscious awareness of what happens. Thing is, I got so good at that, I nearly crapped myself when I did it because I don't like horses at all. That was the one silly thing I did. I picked something which is easy, but it was it was an easy thing that I really disliked. I was frightened of them, blooming things. They're big. And what happened was I got a phone call saying, hey, come down. My horse is in the corral. Well, let's call it a corral. This is in England. It was a fenced off bit of barn. And I rushed down there thinking, oh, bloody hell, do I really have to do this? I went through my notes and now I know what to do. I know exactly how to do it. I'm going to make these pictures in my mind. I'm going to have these particular words in my internal dialogue and I'm going to visualize something. And I got all the steps right. And I walked up into the stable, into this corral barn thing. And there wasn't only one horse, there was two there. I thought, oh, bloody hell. Then I went into the corral, opened the gate, and I went up to these horses. And the one thing you don't do actually is tap them on the head because they can't see it. Their eyes are on the side and they don't like it. So that was a good thing. I learned that anyway. But the thing was, And I'll probably tell you what happened in a minute. But you see, it's all about copying someone's maybe physiology, but also what's inside the pictures they're making. And also the belief they have. Because if they have a particular belief about something, about themselves, then it just happens. Once you get that and you can take it on uncritically and you believe in it yourself, then it just goes. Or the thing goes. I mean, what I've used this for, this particular one with the horse, as I said, I was scared. I nearly swore then, but I was really scared about horses. Now, if I see an animal I'm scared of too, I use this same type of strategy and we get a rapport. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So the thing is, all you need to do is find somebody who can do it well. Do the thing, and the thing they do is superb what you do. I mean, you look at your place of work. If you're going to work, or maybe you're working from home and you're seeing them on the old Zoom and things like that, but you see people and they are just absolutely knocking things out of the park. That's who I'd ask. How do you do that? What do you do? Tell me what you do first. What's your thought process? What do you say to yourself? What pictures do you make in your mind? What do you do first? And when you do that, you can see the difference between what you do and what they do. Now, I'm not saying what you could take all of it on and throw all your stuff out, but what you do is probably pretty good anyway. So you then implement the things that really resonate with you, that make your strategy better. But what happens? You say, oh, yeah, it's all right, Paul, but I haven't got anybody to ask. Well, I guess then you ain't going to do it, are you? What a silly podcast this would be if I said you couldn't do it. Because remember, we're here. What do? Break down the complicated. Make things simple. Look for the simple ways of doing things. So what can we do? What is available? Books, autobiographies, or very good biographer. Someone who asks really good questions. And get to see inside someone's head. Notice, but you need to take a little notebook with you, because you're going to start making notes of, I wonder what they did first. Did they see the big picture, the end result first? Generally, that's what happens. And then they see little steps along the way. But when they're doing those little steps, they've always got that big picture in mind. That's a massive strategy that people use. But it depends what they're saying to themselves and what they believe in. So you can just go to books, find a book that someone who you admire. If you can, you don't have to like them. You just have to find someone who is bloody good at what they do. And you want to do the same. But do it with an intention. Not just to read, but to read and find out. To be curious. Curious of, can I elicit the strategy? And you don't have to be a master practitioner of NLP to do this. Just look, listen. If you can see a video of them, look at the way they physically move, their tone of voice. What do you and sometimes you can imagine what they're thinking. If you were to imagine going into their body, just for a moment, what might they be thinking? And just by doing that, you're going to start to glean little things that will make a difference. And then you try them out. Just try little bits. Because one thing I found I'll serve a tip really in, is instead of just doing one thing at a time and noticing whether it works, I tend to do 3 or 4 things all at once. I change 3 or 4 things, and it's the worst thing I've ever done, because I don't know which one's working really well, which one's not too good, and which one is I shouldn't be doing. So I've stopped doing that now, because this takes a little bit more time. But just get used to doing one bit at a time, and just notice, well, what would happen if I stood that way? It's called act as if. Not fake it till you make it, because that's BS, but act as if. How would I stand if I was doing this? How would I talk? How would I sit at my desk? How would I look at my computer? What would my thought be? What are the pictures in my mind? Their mind. And really break this down into small, bite-sized chunks. So you can watch people. YouTube has everything you can think of. but don't get sucked into the content. And I think that's the thing I'm going to say is we get caught in the content, the words. Now we need to know what the structure of what they're saying is, but not get into the detail of the content, because we're looking for strategies here, their methodology. And then as you start to make a few notes, and I always say make notes, because if you don't, you'll think about them, you'll put them in your mind, and guess what? Something else will come along and pop the other one out, and the other one will be, and then something else will come along and pop that one out as well. But what you can do is then begin to imagine. We've all got imagination, Imagineering. The most, I wouldn't call him, I don't know, the biggest imagination ever was Walt Disney. The things he could see in his mind that we now get to just enjoy. But he had to see it first. He had to be in Disney each time. He would be walking through the doors, seeing everything in his mind, and then as if he was modelling it. And that's what I would like you to do. So going back a little bit, you've got an idea what you want to do better. You've got an idea who you're going to be looking at or who you're going to be reading about. Doesn't take long. And then through that, you commit to, I'm going to make notes about this. I'm going to look at their strategy, look at their physiology. On the physiology side, you could actually just walk when no one's looking, act like them, just for a moment or two. Get an idea just how they're standing. Because what you'll find is it's a very typical ways of standing. When people are thinking, they tend to have their head on the side and looking up in the air. When they're being a bit more critical about things or a bit more in detail, they tend to stand a little bit more rigid, looking forward. But if they're really critical about things and really getting that way, they might just bend over slightly and look down as if they're looking at a book or something to really get some really deep thoughts going. So just by changing your physiology, you will learn something. And then, when you've got a sort of plan, a sort of idea, use that imagination of yours. Just sit down, get somewhere quiet, and see yourself over there doing it. See yourself over there as if you're an observer. This meta view, maybe like a director of a movie. And that you over there is the star of the movie. You're the star. And notice that you over there just doing the things that, not the way you do them now, because that's the way you do them now anyway, but this enhanced way of doing it. And as you see that other you negotiating this new way, you can just suddenly float out and be them, going through that thing. Look through their eyes, your eyes, see what they're seeing, hear what they're hearing, the belief they have, the emotions they have, the physiology, all of this stuff. And then come back out again, back to you again. So you get to try it on. Is it working? Come back. Try it on, come back to yourself. Why do we keep coming back to ourselves? Because that's who you are. You see, if you stayed in that associated bit, that you over there, your unconscious mind seems to think you've already got it. So why would you try to do any more? But when you come back out and go, that's where we're headed. That's our goal. That's what we're looking at. That's what we want to be. Now your unconscious mind can start working with you. And basically it becomes anything you can dream of. Anything you can dream of can become your goal, as long as it's reasonable, achievable. I mean, if you're my age, just not going to tell you how old, but I'm not going to go into the under 21 swimming competition and win a gold medal there. Not because I can't swim, but I wouldn't swim that fast, but I might have a trouble with the age. Or maybe it's a height thing or weight thing or whatever. Maybe I can't even swim, but you could learn to swim, couldn't you? And you'd be a better swimmer. Especially if you had the strategy of a blooming good swimmer. Now, there's a really important thing. And it's a bit that everyone blooming forgets, because this would be a great place to stop. I'll tell you what happened in there at my modelling bit. But before that, What's the thing you really have to do? That's right. You have to do. You have to put this bloody thing in action. You have to try, not try, you have to do it. And if it's not quite the way you want it and it's not quite getting the results you want, you have to change. You have to be aware of what you're doing. So that 5 keys to success, I'm not going to repeat them here because I did it a little while ago and a while before that, and I'll probably do it again in the future. But you have your goal. You take massive, intuitive and constant action. Added that bit in now. But what you have to do is plan it. Plan your practice. Schedule it out. If it's a hobby of yours, make sure you schedule out what you're going to do differently. If it's at work, make a note in the diary. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to follow these new ways. And I'm going to then review. So it's plan, schedule, and review. And the old cluffy rinse and repeat. Because if it's not quite working in that review, what can you do? Go back to the model. What's not happening? How can I make it happen? How can I change it? Then you plan it with a little visualization before, then you plan it, then you schedule it, then you review it. Rinse and repeat. Always, always, always thinking about your state, which will be part of your physiology anyway, but your intention. And your intention is going to be, I'm going to get bloody good at this. In fact, I really don't know how good I could be. So I'm going to be even better than I can dream of. Because if you set a really high bar, you'll get there. Because you'll never set the bar high enough. You just won't. Trust me. I'm a therapist. I'm a hypnotist. So plan, schedule, review. Imagine. So there I was in this corral. The corral. It's a broken down old barn, really. 2 horses. And I went through this strategy, bit by bit, in exactly the right order. Had the words in my mind. I was seeing the pictures in my head. I was imagining various things happening, like sending out good vibes. I won't tell you what the strategy is. I may tell you another day, but I was following that strategy to the letter. My fear disappeared. As I walked to the horse walked towards me for some reason. It was like we were 2 magnets and getting closer and closer. And the really weird thing was, and it did give me a little bit of a wobble, the other bloody horse did the same thing. So now I've got 2 horses. So I'm doing this strategy in stereo, as it were. I'm talking to myself in stereo. I'm talking to this horse in stereo. I'm doing this stuff in stereo. And the 2 horses came to me and they put their head on my shoulder. Shoulders, 1 on each shoulder. 2 bloody great big horses. Head on the shoulder, no problem. I had completed the model. Then what? Guess what happened then? This is the bit I forgot to ask my model. How do you break away from a horse without it getting upset or following you? Because as I started to walk away, they were in such a good rapport with me, they bloody tried to follow me all the way through and I didn't know what was happening. So that one, when you think about what you want to do, you have to think of the consequences. And I didn't. But what I did do, and this is the thing, I then had to tell people about it. And at the end of our practitioner training, master practitioner training, we had to give a presentation on our model, how we got the model, what was our process of eliciting the model, the strategy, then what was the strategy, and then how it worked, so everyone could follow it. Now, it was a little bit daunting to have all these faces in front of you. I think it was 60 faces. Some of them are from my family, but 60 faces out there in the audience. And I had a shed load of notes. I'd mind mapped them. I'd done everything. Now, what I did was I just suddenly thought, well, hang on a minute. What would happen if I use this model for gaining rapport with other animals, all these people? I call them animals, all these people. And I put my notes down. And let's see if I get rapport. And let's see, I was going to set my intention to explain what I did, explain the model, explain how it happened. So I put the notes down face down so I couldn't see them, stood up, and it went awesome. And it was awesome. The model worked, not just with a horse, it worked with other people. So now we're taking a particular model from one thing, one context, and apply it to another context. And yeah, there was a slight little bit of, we had to jiggery poke because I had to, obviously it seared my mind, those mind maps, so I could remember things and follow the process and follow the stages in their right order. But that just happened because I'd got that initial. I got the model, a good model, and I made it even better. Now, I tell you now, I couldn't have dreamt that. And this is where I say you'll never put the bar high enough. If someone has said, I want you to put this as your level, Paul, you're going to have notes, but you're not going to use them. You're going to stand up in front of 60 people, and you're an introvert, by the way, and you're going to explain everything, and you're going to get a wonderful rapport, and you're going to get a little standing ovation at the end. I wouldn't have believed that. I would have said, you're out of your mind. But this is why it's important, because then those dreams become accessible. We talk about creating your own reality, not the woo-loo, la-la bloody stuff. This is creating your reality because you are taking responsibility for stepping up, doing it higher, doing it better. And then the wonderful thing about this is change goes into different areas of your life. Because I say it every blooming time, you will never know how far the ripples of change will go, because they bloody well will. So, there you go. I don't know how long this has been. It was going to be a 5-minute quickie. It might be a longer one. It might be a shorter one. Who blooming knows? But it doesn't matter. I just want you to I want you to be excited about this. Excited because I know you can pick a subject, pick a thing that you want to improve upon. You can find someone who's good at it, and without even having to talk to them. If you can talk to them, even better. Buy them a cup of coffee, ask them the questions. Because people love talking about themselves. Sometimes you have to ease it out of them and entice it. It's called elicitation, because they say, well, I don't know, I just do it. No, you don't. What do you think of first? What's your goal? How do you stand? How do you breathe? All this stuff, you could just do that. You can read about it. You can see a video about it. In this day and age, you can find out anything of how to do anything. And I'm here to help you. Breaking down the complicated, making it easy. But the only thing I'd say is, the only uneasy thing is, and it is easy, but it's not uneasy. I don't like saying the word difficult, but it's that forgotten bit I was telling you about. You have to do it. Because if you're just going to sit here and go, that's absolutely wonderful, but really interesting. Actually, I know what I want to achieve, and I know who I'm going to look at, and I'm going to read their book, and that's it. If you don't do that imagination, but more importantly, if you don't start doing this stuff, it becomes intellectual twiddle-twaddle. And that's a very important word. Twiddle-twaddle, intellectual, put it all together, because I want you to achieve things by doing things. And when you do them, you'll become the person you want to become, the person you're destined to be, and more. Because then you're going to do it again, rinse and repeat. If I can do it here, I can do it any bloody where. But that's all I want for you. So get excited about this, but make sure you do what you want to do. Really practice it, because practice makes permanent. It doesn't be perfect, because I want those imperfections so you can make it even better. And if it doesn't quite work, change it. It's just feedback. Never any failure. Just do it again, differently, and then create that reality. So it's no longer woo-woo bloody la-la. It is your reality. And you then say, how much better can I make this? This or something better. That's where it comes from. I hope you enjoyed this. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. What was your targets? What was your goal? How you succeeded? How well you succeeded? And if there's anything that you need as a little bit of help, what type of help do you need? Because then we'll do another blooming episode and we'll get those things for you. You know that email. It's feedback@personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. Do it. Even if it's only to say, hey, Paul, it was awesome. I've created all of this? And you get a lovely personal reply from me, just like the other people do. We all have these things that we want to share. And then when we share them, you get to keep it, I get to get it, then I share it with somebody else, and we've all got to keep it, and they all get it, and it just gets better and better. And then that thing about, is it reasonable or achievable? Well, actually, you can sit down and say, well, it wasn't only achievable, it was so achievable, I want to make it even a bigger, higher bar. And it was so reasonably easy to do, I want to make it a little bit more, so I really have to stretch myself, because now I can. Enjoy. And just think, I wonder how many in different areas of my life, I can get better and better. What would happen if you thought that right now? Stay with me for a little while, a little bit of house matters, as it were. Stay for that because it's really important. And maybe, if I can find one, I might even give you another old episode. What I will be doing, by the way, is not in this episode, but I'm going to get some of the old intro type things. I can't remember what they call them, but I recorded lots of little ditty type things, a bit like, you are entering into the unplugged, whatever. And I'm going to put them all together so you can listen to the evolution of those little sound bites or whatever they are. I don't know what they're called. Some I paid for, some I did myself, and you can tell the difference. Anyway, enjoy every heartbeat. Email me, tell me, feedback, everything. But stay on the line, because this is important, as I said before. Okay, see you in a bit. So firstly, let's remember a previous podcast, which is a little bit linked to this, I guess, and was requested by a listener, and we actually got 2 parts. So you'll see hashtag 142, and I think it's hashtag 143 probably, and it's all about performance anxiety, because we all suffer from it, and we all experience it in some form or other. So have a listen to the intro. It's linked to this, and maybe you want to just dive back into those 2 podcasts, and there are exercises and maybe I think a little bit of hypnosis in there too. So here's the intro, and well, see what you think. Here's your heads up to this longer podcast, and it's actually a 2-parter, and it's all about performance anxiety. But the thing is, don't think about, I don't perform, because you do. Every breath you take, everything you do is a performance. And if you get any anxiety about what you do, then you have performance anxiety. And we're going to really deep dive into this and find some really good ways of being able to just let it go. So have a listen. So there you go. That was the intro to hashtag 142, performance anxiety. We all experience it. Part 1, actually. Okay, so here's the rest of the housekeeping. Hey, so before you go, I just want to say a big thank you, because so many of you are now sharing this podcast, the Personal Development Unplugged podcast. And it is making a difference. I know it is. But please don't stop. Please keep paying it forward. Share it to everyone you know. Share what you learned from here and tell them where you got it from. In that way, we'll be making a difference. And also, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Look on that player of choice, that platform that you listen on, whether it's Castbox, Google Play, iTunes, or whatever it is. Please look for that subscribe button, if you could, because that makes so much of a difference too. It helps people find this little old thing that we're doing, and will make a difference to you, them, and this little old planet Earth. And it make me feel bloody good too. So please do that, and do remember, there is free hypnosis. Where do you get it? You go to paulcloughonline.com/podcast and get those 45 plus tracks of hypnosis. Have fun with them and make a difference to you, make a difference to the world. Okay? See you soon.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.